Russia will interfere in the 2020 election to help Donald Trump. We must put a stop to this before it happens. And by encouraging people to vote, introducing new legislation, and possibly altering and possibly doing countermeasures. My pick for Vice President, Joe Biden, would ultimately have a tax plan that gives people a credit of $15,000. It would be refundable for low-income individuals, his other tax credit. And of course it would be designed to hold rent and utility payments to 30% of their monthly income. And besides, the Electoral College can put in unpopular presidents. It can also be influenced by the choices of electors. Electors can go faithless and choose not to abide by the popular vote. They would ultimately decide who becomes president. The Electoral College chooses the president and not the people. But they do it based on what some of the people say. Trump has a personal favor for the enemies of the United States. He oftentimes serves their interests instead of ours. He believes them rather than believing the common people. Or the intelligence chiefs. The intelligence chiefs should ultimately be the ones that are listened to, though. The intelligence chiefs would ultimately have the knowledge of whether other foreign countries are interfering in the election. Now Trump's secret police, which he sent out weeks ago, are very similar to what Hitler was doing in that one way of controlling the population. Donald Trump might also do things to further sabotage the post office, just by asking Louis DeJoy to ultimately influence the polls and remove more voting machines. Now Trump's Russia ties ultimately mean that the Russians have compromising information on Trump, who would ultimately be their puppet leader, or who's put in office to destroy American democracy. The police just put a hood on a black man who died of asphyxiation, and then pressed his face into the pavement for 2 minutes, according to what I'm reading on the news. That could have been encouraged by Trump's reckless promotion of racism. Donald Trump's utter irresponsibility and avoidance of condemning police violence would ultimately lead to an increase in it. However, there need to be new legislations passed to prevent police violence, as well was the FBI investigating it to enforce it. The FBI would need to have agents at every police department there is just to enforce these new laws, which will go into effect the moment, and if I get into the presidency, it would take effect the moment and I sign it into law, which would ultimately be required for police to have training in how to use weapons and training on how to avoid violence.